What's up? Check this out. So I just breezed through the book, The Creative Curve by Alan Gannett, which was super interesting. I mean, it just launched earlier this month, and it's brand new, and it's a must-read, and I'm going to explain why. So the book is all about demystifying the myth around creative geniuses, and the myth says that creativity is just innately found in certain people, and they just have that gene or predisposition or whatever it is. Well, Alan Gannett argues the opposite, and that there's actually a formulaic approach that you can take toward creativity, and there's actually 4 steps that he identifies as part of the creative process that helps anyone become creative. But I'm going to get to that in a little bit. First, I want to talk about the core concept, which is this quote here, that creativity is the point of optimal tension between the novel and the familiar. Now that sounds like a lot of words, so let me illustrate that a little bit more. What you see here, this top graph, is the creative curve itself that he uses in the book. And the 2 axes are preference and familiarity. And if you think of familiarity, you can either have a lot of familiarity with something or very little familiarity. So that's kind of the 2 edges of the graph there. And the point of optimal tension, which is the maximum preference, is right there in between the novel and the familiar. So Gannett argues that you have to find that sweet spot between something being novel and something being familiar, where real creativity has success in the marketplace. And a perfect example that illustrates this is actually my favorite example in the book, is the battle between Facebook and Campus Network. And there's a reason why you haven't heard of Campus Network before. It's because it lost out to Facebook, and the reason why is because of the creative curve. So Campus Network is just like Facebook in that it was a social media website that came out actually weeks before Facebook, also built by Ivy League students, had features more advanced than Facebook, but it turns out that that was exactly why it didn't succeed. So the features that Campus Network rolled out were so advanced that it actually overwhelmed the consumers, and they weren't comfortable with the technology. So Campus Network found itself here on the too novel side of the graph. Alternatively, Facebook, they rolled out their features much more deliberately and kind of one at a time so that consumers could gravitate and gradually warm themselves into the idea of the things that the platform provided. So by having a more balanced tension between the familiar and the novel, it was right in the middle of the creative curve, and it experienced wild success, as we all know. So okay, back to the 4 principles that Alan talked about, the 4 laws of the creative process. The first is consumption, and it's that all great creators are actually the greatest consumers. And the 20% rule talks about how creators consume content 20% of their day. So by having that keen eye to what good content is, what the market likes, they can then become great creators themselves. And a really cool example of this is Ted Sarandos. He is the chief content officer at Netflix, and he started his career in the industry as a VHS cashier at just some random VHS store. And he vowed to himself that he was going to watch every single movie in his downtime in that store. And with that, he just started really getting a fine-tuned palate to different movies, different types, and became an expert consumer himself. So when his role transitioned into being a creator, he had all this experience with different content that he'd consumed, that he was perfectly positioned to do a great job. And now he's running Netflix. Second law is imitation. And imitation works really well with the creative curve, because if you think about it, you want something that's familiar but still with a degree of novelty. And by using a blueprint, you can take something that's worked previously and iterate on it just a little bit, have something that's slightly unique that brings it toward the novel side and has it dead center balanced in the creative curve. An example of that are memes. Memes are basically the same format where you have a picture and some words, and the picture's a little different and the words are a little different, but that format is familiar enough that it's not too far on the right side of the graph, and you can be comfortable consuming the content because it is familiar with that slight degree of novelty. Next is creative communities, and this is just surrounding yourself around the right type of people so that you yourself have a team that fosters creativity. So the 4 different people in your team, first is a master teacher, or someone who's just an industry expert, knows the ins and outs of everything. A conflicting collaborator, which is someone who complements your skill set. Maybe you're the idea guy and they're the executor. Maybe it's vice versa, to have that well-rounded team. Next is a modern muse, which is someone that is superfluous by nature, but they come out with a ton of different ideas, and they really challenge you in the way that you think and the way that you do things and the reasons why. So just more of kind of like a creative challenger. And then last is a prominent promoter. So someone who has developed a network and a platform and credibility through their own actions, and they're willing to extend their hand and be like, okay, I'm going to associate my credible brand with yours, and from there you can have a larger reach and more credibility on your own because you're associated with them. Okay, law 4 is iterations, and this is actually once the product is out. So you've kind of gone through the whole creative process and you put your product out, your consumers are using it, and you're now looking to make fine adjustments to that product based on customer feedback, but specifically qualitative feedback. So you take those small pieces of feedback, you iterate a little bit, and you finalize your product to continue improving it because everything's a work in progress. The market's always changing. The demand is always changing. It's important to keep that in mind. So that is a very quick version of the creative curve. Attached to this, I have an article that I've posted that goes into a little bit more detail about some more examples, some more concepts, a more well-rounded understanding of the whole thing. But having said that, it is still not enough to understand the entire book because there is so much wisdom, so much value, incredible examples. I mean, he spent a ton of time really putting this book together, and it is a really good read. Like I said, I read it in like 3 days, so it's really good. You got to check it out and read it for yourself, and let me know what you think because this book is going to be huge. I just got a feeling. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I appreciate you taking the time. See ya.